I have major exams coming up in a few weeks, the kind that determine my entire career path, and I can't focus because my father is having an affair. My parents have never had a good marriage. I've literally never seen them show love to each other. It's always been verbal abuse and constant fighting. My father is the sole breadwinner, and he uses that to control and disregard my mother. He shuts her out of every monetary decision and treats her with zero respect, which has made my mother cynical and contemptuous. She absolutely loathes my dad and speaks ill of him whenever she gets a chance. I've spent years wishing they would just get a divorce. I've talked to my mother about it at length, but she's terrified of society and what people will think, so she stays and suffers. Recently, I found evidence that my dad is cheating on my mom. On top of the years of toxicity, this feels like the final straw. I want to scream. I want to tell her, but I also have these exams that will change my life. If I fail, I'm stuck in this house and this cycle for many more years to come. If I pass, I have a way out. How do I shut my brain off? How do I stop caring about their mess long enough to save my own future?
That's a lot for a kid. I mean, I'm 25 and my parents are getting divorced, and that's wild for me.
They just recently, right now, that happened to you?
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, they're in the process of getting divorced. Similar situations, actually, to our OP. But at any age, seeing that dynamic of the people who raised you and who our society tells us they're supposed to know better, like when you see that breaking up, it is a little difficult, especially if you're going through your own stresses. So, I mean, I would definitely say I'm feeling for OP. I get that.
Yeah.
You can't help people who don't want to be helped. That's the hardest part, is if your mom doesn't want to go through with things just because she's afraid of what outlying sources would say. You can't help her in that situation. You kind of got to let her make her own decisions, even if they're not decisions that you would agree with, which is heartbreaking because you don't want to have to be the adult in the relationship.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you got to help yourself.
Well, I absolutely agree with that. I have not experienced anything like it, but I can empathize with OP. I mean, He's trying to pass his test so that he can have a career away from his parents and all this drama, but he feels for his mother and what's going to happen to her, so naturally he's distracted. The whole situation calls for the oxygen mask principle. So OP... I was
thinking that exact same thing.
OP needs to remember what we're told. In case of an emergency while we're flying on a plane, you put your own mask on first before helping others. So he can't save his parents' marriage. It looks like it's already been over for a while.
Right.
Can't even imagine how horrible that must be to see disharmony all the time. I have an ex-girlfriend who she used to watch her parents fight when she was growing up. And more or less, it wasn't even the explosion of anger that bothered her the most. It was actually the passive aggressiveness she would witness all the time. Like they would just sit down for breakfast and, the dad would be, here are your eggs. She's like, can you pass the salt? Fine. So she's just like, at one point she told me, she yelled, just get a divorce already.
That was me as a kid.
I mean, if you see it. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
In that same realm is that, I'm sure that she at that point was like, is this what I should be basing my relationships off of? Is this what the ideal concept of love looks like to me? If it's not, then how do I have a healthy ideal? How do I have a good role model? What am I supposed to be looking for? How are people supposed to treat me? I mean, I've gone through all of that. And you also get to that aspect where you have to sit and think, well, now I'm breaking the cycle. If I don't want to end up like them, I have to choose what it is I want to do. And how do I figure that out for myself? In this situation, I think it would just be letting go of them and realizing you have to take these tests again, because he did say or they said the only way to get out of the house is to pass those exams. So you just really have to think about breaking that cycle.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. I mean, he can be there for his mom emotionally and maybe eventually financially if he passes the test and gets his own career. There's a lot of issues where a parental figure, usually the father, will hold the money over the head of everybody else.
Right.
And that's obviously what he's feeling too. That's why he's thinking, I've got to make my own way. Here's my ticket out of here. But first, I got to pass the test and not let this distract me. So here's maybe a mantra he can think about. This is their storm to weather. I am just a passenger right now. I'll deal with the wreckage once I land. Hopefully he'll be able to land. And here's another point I was thinking, another plane analogy, so to speak. He should establish a no-fly zone. If his father or mother reaches out to him with all of this cheating drama, which probably will happen at some point, he needs to set an immediate boundary and tell them that he loves them both, but right now he's in the middle of finals and his brain is at full capacity. He has to focus on what's in front of him.
I like that. I like the no-fly zone. I was like, wow, that's a really good one. Because, I mean, that's like an easy metaphorical way of accepting boundaries for someone who maybe doesn't know how to set boundaries. Yeah. You know, if you're growing up with this as like your parental figures, I'm sure you don't know what healthy boundaries look like. Learning what they look like, learning how to set them. It's really difficult to say the sentence, please respect my boundaries. You know? So having a no-fly zone, I wish I'd had that growing up. I wish I had.
Everybody needs a no-fly zone when it comes to certain things in life. Because, you know, especially when you live with someone, whether it's a parent or a girlfriend or a wife or even just a roommate, like we mentioned earlier, their dramas are eventually going to spill into your life at some point, because that's just how we are. You know, we get emotional and we get in a mood. And so therefore, someone's going to bring something to the table and maybe even take it out on you. If you happen to be in a good place, you might go, hey, you know, let's just take a step back. What's going on with you? Why are you so hostile right now? And they might be like, you know, there's something happened at work or something happened here and I'm just kind of in a bad mood. Okay, yeah, talk about it. Kind of put it on the table and talk about it. Other times, though, if you're not in a good place to respond to this type of situation from, let's say, a roommate, you'd be like, look, I'm in the middle of this project right now. I really I got to go back to my room and get to work. I can't really indulge in all this. That's that no-fly zone concept.
And it's hard because like sometimes people are like, that's rude. And it's not rude. It's just saying I can't handle it right now.
Right. Yeah. Boundaries and respect. And that is the thing. I mean, you know, I could tell you that as Irish, my wife always says, like, I'm an extrovert and she's an introvert. So there's a really good balance there. But that means sometimes, like, if there's conflict, sometimes we'll deal with things differently. Yeah. And I will want to talk it out, but she might need some space. She might be, you can almost say a little more cat-like. The cat's like, you know what? I'm going to go over here. I'm going to sit in the corner. I'm going to do my thing. Don't bother me. I'll come back to you when I'm ready. And that can be hard for someone like me who wants to just kind of talk about it immediately.
You guys are golden retriever and black cat. Like, the duality.
Maybe. She does have black hair. Yeah. She does say I'm a golden retriever. She does sort of say that type. I think so. So now children of cheating parents, they always feel a sense of responsibility for their mother's pain or their father's choices. But as you said earlier, he is not his father's keeper and he's not his mother's emotional bodyguard. So he should just focus on himself, maybe do some meditation or box breathing, something like that, just to help center himself. Because I know how much stress it can be to try and study for something and have drama in your life. So I do feel for him. Hasn't happened to me exactly that way, but I feel for him because you can see when someone else is stressed and when they're sensitive. I am sensitive to stress. Yeah. I can, like, if I sense major disharmony somewhere around me, like with a coworker, a friend, I don't like to let that sit. It's like hard for me. I want to be like, okay, hey, what's going on? I feel like you're giving me the cold shoulder. Let's talk about it.
I think it's what you're describing is that you're an empath. I feel that way sometimes too. I used to be really, really sensitive to other people's emotions where you just pick it up a little bit. I think you might be an empath.
I have to ask Iris what she thinks about that because she's done my my Myers-Briggs profile and all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah, and hers too. Actually, she'll have to tell me. Tell me the names, Iris, real quick. I'm an ENFP and she's an INTJ.
I don't know what I am. I don't remember. It's been years since I took that test. I think I would have to take it again as an adult and see what I am.
But it's really funny you say that because when I was younger, my parents they took the family to Washington, D.C. We used to live in the suburbs of New York. So this is the first time we were at one of those restaurants that overlooked, I don't even remember, like the Washington Monument or something, you know, in D.C. And I noticed this man sitting alone at a table. And I immediately said to my parents, hey, that guy seems lonely, he seems sad. Let's invite him over to our table for dinner. And my parents were like, what? No, that's not what you do. He's just a stranger. I'm like, he seems sad. He seems like he just would like company. So I eventually went over to him, just talked to him for a few minutes. Anyway, it turns out, I don't know who exactly, but this was a senator. Some U.S. senator was having dinner alone in this restaurant. No wonder he's got all the stress of the world. But that my parents had to explain to me, you do not just invite strangers over to your table. And
I do.
I didn't understand why. What are your thoughts?
There's a difference between being nice and kind. I think that that's kindness. You're seeing somebody stressed, maybe having an emotional moment, and it's not necessarily wrong to invite a stranger to your table. Not every day. Like maybe not everybody needs to be invited, but I do think that sometimes that changes the course of a person's life. Like my grandma used to be able to get someone's entire life story in like 30 seconds. There's things that you can do that are kind for strangers. I don't think that stranger danger necessarily is in the time span that we're at right now. Definitely not every stranger. But if you can sense something off of someone, I think that's important to recognize, because there is human connection with others that you don't necessarily know. I always say I've never met a stranger. Like, yeah, you can go up and you can invite him over, and I'm sure that probably made his day. And then that also teaches him a little bit about how to have empathy for others as well.
Yeah, to vote for healthcare next time for everybody. I do believe that we all emit an energy, some bioelectric field. Some people call it an aura, but we can sense this. I think almost everybody has had a moment where they're in a crowded room and all of a sudden somebody walks in and either they have this really dark energy and you just kind of turn around and go, what is that? Or the opposite, some really bright energy. You turn around, oh, who's that? It's just, that's when someone's really dialed in with their emotions and it's just pushing into the room and people can sense it. They don't even have to see it. I've many times sensed it without even looking. And then I turn to verify at some point. And you go, what is that? Oh, okay. So yeah, I do think that's kind of what you were talking about. There's an intuition that we have. And so yeah, you can get a real sense of somebody from just their energy, their vibration, how they interact with people. Sometimes it's as simple as a smile. If they smile and you see in their eyes there's a light there versus some people who are, let's say they say sociopathic, the light is not there, and maybe there's just like a facade. It's really awkward. I've seen people who could be that, and you're always just like they don't know human emotions, so they learn how to mimic human emotions, and a lot of that is just like smile, like robotic. This is where I'm supposed to nod.
It's almost like
really
plastic, like you can tell there's something intrinsically false about it, but I don't know, I'm like holding it up like it's a smile. Like there's something intrinsically false about it, but you can't fully pin your finger on it. Like I've definitely had We're gonna go